All right, welcome everybody to the Synapse Philosophy Group. We are on principle number 9, page 250 in Stevenson's senior text. And we're breaking it down and discussing it. And you can send messages for people who are listening to this in Brazil and Mexico and all of Europe. You know, send me some questions, or we'll present them to the group. I've gotten a few, and and we'll start sharing some of them. So right now we're going to start. We've got our master reader, Alan Lichter, ready to go. And I'm going to turn over the microphone to Alan. Go ahead.
All right. Principle number 9 from the senior text of Stevenson. The amount of force created by innate, I'm stumbling already. The amount of force created by intelligence, principle number 9. The amount of force created by intelligence is always 100%. Force is an immaterial thing. There's nothing to prevent intelligence from creating all it wants of it. But intelligence, being perfect, therefore incapable of incorrect action, creates the requisite amount, no more, no less. The amount of force created by innate in the brain cell is the proper amount to perform a specific act, no more, no less. Hence, 100%. The amount created a moment later for the same tissue cell may not be as much or the same quality, but would be exactly suitable for the occasion. This shows the law of adaptation.
Okay. Anybody have any input on that? Alan, what'd you get out of it?
Well, it talks about, again, at the very end, and I highlighted the law of adaptation, because the innate is constantly adapting the forces that come into it. And somebody, I think Danny Knowles had a question up online this week that it was like, when does the adjustment happen? And I wrote something to the effect of the adjustment happens anytime innate adapts a force that comes into the body, an undefined force that may be a destructive, that has destructive survival values, and adapts it to be a usable force to a constructive survival value that's allowed to assist the body in assuming a higher level of health. A chiropractic adjustment occurs, which is different from an adjustment which can occur with any force that happens to the body. That a chiropractic adjustment is when a chiropractic thrusts into a body and introduces a force to the best of our educated ability to put in some force that is close to what innate can use, and she still has to adapt that force to make it to find what she can use and make it an adaptable force for that to create a constructive survival value for the body, and that's the adjustment. When innate adapts the force for use in the body.
So I answered that same question, and I said, when we get out of the way. We get ourselves out of the way. And I think once we really realize that we're not the adjuster, we're the introducer of force, right? And, for us, the one thing people, this goes back to even the subluxation, you're still 100%. With the subluxation, this one I think is one of the most important ones. Innate, there is never less innate in your body. Your body's, God's not speaking less to you because you're subluxated. It's still 100% all the time. It's just the adaptive forces are different during the subluxation. The body's adapting to other internal and external forces and trying to cope with those forces. And once we take out a variable in a way, right, we're helping the body adapt to that variable, then there's clarity. And, I look at it as efficiency of energy. Now the system's working more efficient.
The subluxation may be an adaptation that was applied by innate, if you will, at a time when it was as the best adaptation possible at the moment. and may need, and that outside force is again necessary to allow innate to adapt the subluxation out of the way.
Oh, absolutely. And we've discussed the subluxation. The subluxation's coming from us, and we're not the victims of it. Very, small percentages from the outside, like get hit by a bus or, drop an anvil on your head or something. But, that to me is a communication from innate saying, here, adjust me here. I need some help there. This is the point. And if anything, and it's also, the protection. Maybe there's an overstimulation and we need to slow down actions at your pancreas for the moment. And this is the way we are able to do it for the moment. Sometimes it might get stuck. Maybe I'm thinking even in a feedback loop, and it's unable to adapt. Or
you talk about if the sequelae to a subluxation is sometimes in the spine, a spur starts to form, right? And you get it because that's the longer term effect of that being there. And that's not going to go away instantaneously, but it is able to be reabsorbed over time when interference is removed, and the innate can start to adapt and heal and start to remove that calcium deposit that is no longer needed to stabilize that area.
But that area might not actually have a be a subluxation. It might be a
not
fixation.
Need to be adjusted. No.
Right.
No.
It might be a fixation, which, mobilizing a fixation has value. Okay. And I'm not saying that is what you call a manipulation, because the adjustment has a nerve component, right? Because you're adjusting the subluxation. But in having I've had, even in my neck, just, mobilizing an area of someone adjusting a fixation in a facet, because you can't have a subluxation in a facet. There's no nerve component. Again, value at the moment of relief, but a subluxation, adjusting that subluxation, there is a nerve component affecting the central nerve system. Yeah. What else? How about you, Marina? Did you get anything out of this?
I think it's hard for people sometimes to know that we have the limitations of matter. Sometimes people come in such a need of help, but they need also to learn that their body is intelligent, but at some point, some actions of their lives are not gonna do everything for them because all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, when something's screaming, help me, and you want it to go away in 1 minute, and it might have taken 30 years to get there. Jesus might have done it, but I can't. There's limitation to matter. And then you're drinking 4 or 5 Diet Pepsis a day, and or I have 2 people in my office, and I think this is awesome. Both of them are drinking the equivalent of 2-liter bottles. So 4 liters a day of Diet Coke. I can't believe it. And they're both quitting. That's like quitting crack cocaine, or worse probably. And I'm really proud of them. And they're taking charge of their life. Now they're adjusted. It makes that mental switch. I want to feel better and be better in my life. So they're making that conscious switch for themselves. That you can't tell somebody, go lose weight, fatso. They have to get to that own thing. They've been told they're chubby or husky their entire life. If we love them enough, adjust them emotionally, spiritually, physically, things change in their life. And like Alan said last week, when people say, oh, nothing's happening, so what's changed in your life? What's new with you? What's happened? And they usually come up with something like, well, I've been sleeping better and I haven't snapped at my children and I let my husband move back in the house or whatever it is, because lives change. It's not just the crick in the neck or the pain in the back.
I had a patient came in and said that I had a patient come in and say, my wife says I'm nicer now that I'm getting adjusted.
Yeah. I've had wives come back in. They said, my husband said he's not coming back, but he's coming back. Like, yes, he's coming back. He's a much better person when he gets adjusted.
Yeah.
The men are, go ahead, Marina.
Most of the times people just want to run away from their problems than to facing them.
Oh my gosh, you hit the
want
biggest
somebody
thing in
else
the
to
world.
fix us, and they want us to fix them, and that's the hard part, is that we have to make sure they understand we're not going to fix them, they fix them.
You know, and that's even BJ, he mentions that left and right all through the texts, that, you know, once we start taking credit for it because, hey, you're the big guy or the big girl, you help somebody do it. But in reality, you know, we move the bone, you give them the credit. And I think that's what truly builds a practice too, is getting ourselves out of the way. You know, we're talking about people now, and I had a woman come in today. She hasn't been in a year. She bought 2 plans for herself, right? One for her husband, one for her. He never used it. We just let her use it. And then she used 5 and has been gone for 2 years. Came back today, has been through unimaginable stuff from the Mayo Clinic to all the big name clinics that made millions on her Medicare, and said, I don't know what's wrong with you. You have PTSD. Here's your drugs, right? She came in today and I said, you know, God guided you here. She goes, you're right. I have no idea why I just came here. I just drove here out of being everywhere on all the drugs, antidepressants. And I adjusted her. I toggled her is what I did. And she just started crying. And I just gave her a hug for a minute. And I said, we're working with you, not just your bones and your brain and your skin, but you as a person. And everything can change. And I'm gonna be here with you. And for me, you know, sometimes it takes a second to say, I'm on your team, you know, like we have taken responsibility for these people. We have to take responsibility for them. And, you know, it's not always easy. And sometimes we cry. And that's why even having this, so we can let it go, we're around our philosophy and get our juice on, you know? So I had a big day today. It was emotional is what it was. The whole day was emotional people, because maybe I'm so emotional is what it is.
There you go. I don't know, Marina, I don't know if you Haig probably have heard this, but Marina, you may not know that at one time, Dr. Mayo's wife was very sick, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And Mayo brought her to BJ at the BJ clinic, and BJ adjusted her. And I don't remember the whole story. I wish I did right now, but she clearly got better. And for a long time, chiropractors, if they needed to go to the Mayo Clinic, could go for free, because he had saved the life of Dr. Mayo's wife. That's no longer the case, but that's, you know, a story from our past that I'm sure is fading from most people's memory. So I want to pass that on to you, Marina, so you know the story.
And that's I think it's in the bigness of the fellow within. I think it might be in there in a couple different books, actually.
It might be, yeah. But that's, yeah. People don't, you know, we have a long history of helping many different people and many kinds of people.
And it's our responsibility. And that's where, you know, we have to just even step up to protect this profession. My wife worked hard before any group, even before the ICA, anyone, and, you know, in protecting rights in Brazil. Because Brazil was the very first country to actually declare chiropractic as a separate profession from physical therapy or anything. It was a distinct profession, and that's kind of lost right now in Brazil already. I'd like to find that precedent in that court proceeding about that. And I think it was around 2011, maybe 2010, because 2012, we were fighting the CCE and we were trying to roll that in, but it just gets pushed aside so quickly. And, but my wife was really, you know, in the forefront of that. We should have that everywhere in the world, where we're in some worlds, we're a technique of physical therapists. Do chiropractic is a technique of physical terrorism, is what I call it. And so in preserving what we have, remaining separate and distinct, you know, it is such a key element that you are a chiropractor. We are chiropractors. You're receiving chiropractic from a master chiropractor, not somebody that took a 2-week course, right? So, preserving it in Brazil or anywhere, just teaching and doing this podcast, we do this to preserve it. We're going through 33 principles. We're going through D.D. Palmer. It's already happening, it is part of this. So, yeah, I think that's an extremely important part of what we're doing and why we're doing it, why we've been doing it for almost 2 years now. All right, anybody else? Dave Sarnoff, you're walking in the dark. I like it. All right, let's do principle number 10. Alan, you ready?
I'm ready. All right, the function of force, principle number 10. The function of force is to unite intelligence and matter. We would never know there is such a thing as intelligence, since it is abstract, unless it is shown to us by matter that is expressed. Matter cannot exist without the attention of intelligence. Structures of matter cannot exist without the building forces of intelligence. Structures of matter cannot continue to exist without the maintenance by intelligence. This is accomplished by the application of force by intelligence. This force is the connecting link or bond between intelligence and matter. And once again, we need to remember this force is not physical force at this point. It's an
life force.
It's a life force. It's an intangible force, not measured in pressure type of force that your muscles make.
Well, we're talking about a universal force, an energy, life force, and creating more life, replicating cells, breaking them out, breaking them down, getting them out of the body. And, the difference between a rock, there is a universal intelligence there. There are atomic chemical bonds. There are, molecular bonds, but it's not reproducing itself. It's not recreating new rock. And where we have intelligence in matter, a living being is creating itself and healing itself and replicating itself. And that intelligence is the necessary force. It cannot exist without building structures of matter, cannot exist without the building forces of intelligence. And when this is the part, really, these last two principles, if the medical world honored that understanding, right, we would have a whole different concept of medicine in this world, allowing the body to heal itself. Give it a chance. So I think we're in a critical point in chiropractic, and I'm excited about this. Anybody else?
The analogy I like to use, Haig, is a tree is alive and is adapting to its environment. You cut it down and cut a board out of it, and you make a desk out of it, it's still wood. It still maintains its integrity. The intelligence is still present that maintains its integrity. The innate intelligence of the tree is no longer present. It doesn't adapt any longer. So you've got this, the wood is still maintained. It's still the same wood as was in the tree, but you've got, so the universal intelligence is present. The innate intelligence is no longer present in that dead piece of wood.
It's like going back and saying, go get a frozen Purdue chicken and shove some antibiotics in it and go get some B complex and whatever. And you see if it'll come back to life. It's just matter at that point. The concept
of innate intelligence no longer being present, I think, is what got me through anatomy lab.
Yeah.
Because I said, okay, this is just, there's universal intelligence. It still has the shape of a human body, but the rest of that's gone. And that's what got me through that.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Marina, do you have to, in Brazil, do you guys have anatomy classes like with a cadaver, with a dead body?
We don't have cadavers itself. It's more like pieces of structures that simulate bones and muscles.
Okay. Because now
But
in
we
the
have
labs,
classes. We
I
do.
know at Life University, they have like, an iPad, pick out what this is, it's not even any corpses anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think
So bizarre.
that's not fair, really.
I wanted to take the Atlas home. They wouldn't let me.
Crazy. All right. So let's go on. Let's do principle number 11.
All right. So so we don't miss it, and effectively what that last principle is also talking about is a lead into a little bit later where we talk about the triune.
Okay.
All right. So number 11, character of universal forces. And I think this one's interesting too. The forces of universal intelligence are manifested as physical forces, are unswerving and unadapted, and have no solicitude for structures of matter. Bodies actuated by physical forces will not go one iota out of their way to dodge anything in their paths. Things actuated by these forces may be injured or destroyed by their rigor. There is not the slightest variation of their amounts, qualities, or direction in order to protect a single thing. They are antipodal to adapted forces. However, the student must not conclude from this that universal intelligence is maliciously destructive. It is but the working of the great cycle, the plan of universal intelligence, that this be so, in order to maintain life. Universal intelligence, by putting localized portions of itself in matter, builds up structures in order that they may be something to tear down. What would happen eventually if no structure was ever torn down? It is clear that creation would cease and there would be no further life. For structures must be destroyed in order that living things continue to live. A little thought will show that every bit of food we eat or have eaten is organic matter, vegetable or animal. It matters not which, but have had innates and have been deprived of their lives in order that we might live. Another thought, suppose all the people who have lived in all the thousands of years we're living now. It is not possible that the entire surface of the earth would be covered several layers deep with their bodies. Let us compare your watch to one of innate structures for an analogy. This watch is made of molecules and atoms, which are just as valuable to innate intelligence as the elemental state as they are in the structural state. The structure, however, was of value to the factory which made it, and is to you who possess it. In the hands of both, it gets extreme care. You do not thrust it to the tender mercies of universal laws by leaving it outdoors in all kinds of weather, by putting it in water or letting it fall. You keep it carefully in your pocket, suspended on a chain or in its case. At every instant of its structural existence, you keep it in a safe place and see that it is repaired when it needs it. To be convinced of what universal laws will do to a tissue cell, the structure valued by innate, you should take your watch, a structure valued by you, and hold it over a hard floor or stone and let the law of gravity have it for a fraction of a second. The keys will always drop, Dr. Sim used to say.
Yep.
It's interesting that we now understand that all that we are made up of and everything on this planet is made up of stardust. All the atoms in the universe were created in the furnaces of stars, and therefore that's how they build up the different, all the cells on all the atoms in the chart of elements are all built up from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, all through the system, are all built in the bellies of stars. And as stars explode billions of years ago, they created other planets would form and other stars. And then ultimately, we are all the cells in our bodies and everything we eat are all made up of stardust. How's that for a thought process from universal to innate?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, thinking about what a universal force is, bodies actuated by physical force will not go in one iota out of their way to dodge anything in their past. Things actuated by those forces may be injured or destroyed by their rigor. There is not the slightest variation in their amount of quality. Universal intelligence is 100% as well. And, when we talk about the creation of all the cosmos, that stardust, all those universal forces all together, we're a finite portion of that. Go ahead, Marina.
This made me think something is actually a question. If this, for me, is really beautiful to think about all these universal laws, but if we think about the innate intelligence, does it mean that we have kind of a survival mode that maybe the innate intelligence would not worry about other people's innate intelligence, like our body would only care about itself besides others, because we are always trying to build things inside of us and being constructive, and we have these destructive forces. I don't know if you got this question.
I think that innate is global. Innate is shared. Do you ever walk into a room and get a sense of the room, Marina? You get a feeling when you walk in a room with a bunch of people? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I want to be here. That's your innate is interacting with all the energy that's already in that room from all those other people. And again, it's working to determine if this is good for me or bad for me. How do I adapt to this situation? But we share innate in us is the same as my innate is a part of the same innate that's in Haig and in you and in David. And when we're together, we share that energy, and we're always working to help each other. There's some people's educated brains get in the way of that and cause problems. But ultimately, when all religions talk about the love of each other and sharing with each other and being, we're brothers with each other. Most religions, that when you get to the core of virtually all religions, they're all talking about universal intelligence and innate intelligence. When you get all the way down to it, and they all have different names, but it's all the same. And they all talk about love and taking care of each other. And so does that answer your question some? I started to drift there, I think.
No, you kind of answered, but it's a little confusing for me, like to think about like a virus trying to think about other people. I think it has innate intelligence, right?
Sure, the virus does, and it's trying to survive.
Yeah,
it has to survive.
Yeah, and thinking about I think maybe it's the law of life, right? What we do, we are gonna pay on the end. Maybe something about it.
Well, if you want to talk about viruses, because I think it all. No, that's good. It's all part of a plan, and in reality, when you see epidemics or pandemics of viruses, where the areas that are most affected is usually big cities and concentrated populations, almost overpopulated often. And the viruses may be a part of the plan to, and it sounds cold, but it's, if you think it's about thinning the herd, it's about decreasing an overpopulation. And it may be, part of a cycle to allow a settling or a change in the population. It's not, and again, it's a universal force that may be unsolicitous. And to us intelligently, we are affected by all my friends all these people I know died, or the media plays out the number of people that are dying. In reality, when you look at this particular virus, the percentage of people dying is not any more than a lot of other viruses and flus that are around, but it's the fact that it's new, and so it's killing more people at one in a short period of time.
Well, there have been books and papers written about that exact thing throughout history. And one of my degrees is in international relations. I have a minor in European history, and in European history, that's one of the things of studying these cycles of virus. And it's usually at the peak of a what do you call it, a kingdom or a cycle of rule, when things get very, very populated and very complicated and it's not able to sustain itself. Something like that happens, and then things normalize again. And it's really interesting. I'd love to find that book again. I've been thinking about it for a long time since you said that. But there have been a lot of research studies done about that exact thing, Alan. When we talk about really is about that universal force, intelligence are manifested as physical laws. When people often say that universal intelligence is destructive and innate intelligence are constructive. And I don't buy that. That's not something I use. Does anybody have any enlightenment about those things?
Well, it says clearly here that the student must not conclude from this that universal intelligence is maliciously destructive. It's not maliciously destructive. There may be destruction involved when the hurricane comes through or a flood comes through, but that's
just the breakdown of the body. The body is going to decay. Someone said, I'm not dying. I'm like, well, we're all dying eventually. Today in the office, we're all breaking down ourselves in normal process. When we get a fever process or whatever, the adaptive forces are minimalized, and ultimately bacteria and virus want to bring us back into an energetic exchange with the earth. But our innate forces, when they're stronger in our immune system, bring us back above that. Some are not going to make it, more will. So that's my thought on it.
And sometimes the innate has to be destructive to clear the body from these bad things that are happening, right?
Innate isn't destructive. Innate it adapts the universal forces that come into the body.
Well, innate does have destructive. It has to break down cells. We're breaking down 3 to 4 million cells a minute, exchanging them with new ones. So there are some destructive processes that it needs to do, right? But it's all for the betterment of the unit as a whole. The body as a whole, it's for the benefit of that being living within you. And, when people say they have autoimmune diseases, I said, usually there's probably been another factor causing that, because the body always wants the best for you. Sometimes it goes the other way. Who knows why? Some people blame it on vaccines. But, ultimately the innate wants the best for you. And then, of course, the people around it. And I think people are healing. Some people put off healing energy. Alan, you've been in practice long enough, and you, Dave, and Marina too. People walk in and say, I was feeling terrible until I got out of the car to come in to see you. And I started feeling great. Maybe I should leave. Well, you started, when did the adjustment begin? Probably the moment you started thinking of us, right? And the body said, hey, we're getting adjusted. I know we're going to be better. We're much more functioning at a higher level, right?
Even sometimes people can heal you, because these days I was with a lot of headache, and this person came in and suddenly my headache went out. I don't know what happened. And I said that to her. Thank you so much for that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, we're healing with each other. We're healing on this phone. We don't have to be in the same room and heal. I think you can heal.
And the acknowledgement of that, Marina, is important, and that's good, because the more you acknowledge that you see that happen and know that it can happen, allows it to happen more.
Great.
Fantastic. Any closing statements for anybody? Want any clarity?
God, are we done already?
We're done already. We got a lot. We went through a
That
lot.
was quick. That was quick stuff.
With a concise group like this, we really get a lot done. We went through some deep concepts, you know. It's this is our fighting weight right here. We're doing well. We're doing well. And we got Dave. Where are you right now? You look like you're in a hospital. Where are you right now? Is that Walmart?
EVS.
Oh, good. All right.
He's getting the drugs.
Yeah, I'm getting my Lipitor, Percocet, Demerol, and all that other stuff.
Oh, good. There
I'm
you
only
go.
No, but I will say one of the things with universal intelligence versus innate intelligence is that obviously when the innate intelligence leaves the body and the person's pronounced dead, so to speak, that the universal forces become destructive in nature, and then the human body deteriorates, and then the body is no longer is able to adapt, and obviously it disintegrates. But with the innate intelligence in the body, it's able to adapt to universal forces, for the benefit of survival, gravity, ultraviolet rays, and different things like that. And I think that what she was asking the young lady was, does the innate intelligence, is it so advanced where it can protect other people? And I would have to say no. I would say the innate intelligence is only designed for the structure in which it's in. Like a tree's innate intelligence isn't, a tree is not going to grow to protect another tree. It's
now you hit on a concept that BJ talked about that I've had a lot of discussion with some old dudes. One of my mentors was at Clearview. His name was Clarence Jensen. And we had this conversation about where BJ thought innate intelligence began. And he said it began at birth. And, my thought really is that separate innate starts at conception, not at birth, where BJ actually mentioned, that innate really begins at birth because of sort of what Dave was saying, but where that's a protection, a mother's going to protect that baby at all costs, the best she can, innately has that mission to do so. But yeah, that's where we're getting some fine points. I like that, Dave. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that
yeah,
was, thank you.
Yeah, the innate intelligence not only protects the baby when the mother's pregnant, but the innate intelligence is designed to protect the spinal cord. That's why the body goes into spasm when the innate intelligence think that a certain level of the spinal cord is being compromised for protection. The innate intelligence is always in a homeodynamic process. I don't think the innate intelligence in the human body has favoritism towards a fetus inside of it more than it does its own heart, liver, lungs, pancreas, or something like that. I don't think innate intelligence gives favoritism.
Well,
I think it's just,
where would you go with when having something like when a mother is protecting a baby, right? I think part of that is her innate is expressing that as her individual coming out through matter. And I think it does have protective forces, not necessarily all the time. Most of its job is in constructive force.
Well, isn't the mother protecting the baby the educated mind?
I don't know. I think it's an innate process. I think it's something that we just innately do when we see a child.
I think that goes to a couple of things there. One, I think that probably the mother's innate does on some level work to protect the infant, but I think that the infant has its own innate from conception, as you said, that's also working as part of the process of the development and of the body, and that the innate in the mother will only protect it so far. If the mother becomes at risk, too much at risk because of something with the baby, then the baby is what gets sacrificed, not the mother, most of the vast majority of the time.
True. Yep.
And I think that, and not to argue with you, Dave, but but as far as trees go, they're now finding that trees do nurture their young, and they'll send roots out to support the young that are close by, and trees communicate with each other when they're being attacked by insects, and it's an interesting. There
Isn't
is
that
some
amazing?
sharing going on there.
It's amazing. All right,
So-
everybody, let's wrap it up. And, next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, same chiropractic. We're on principle 11. We're going to be in principle 12, correct?
12, right.
Okay.
Interference with transmission of universal force is next.
And I have this video and last week's to still post. I haven't posted them yet and gotten them up. It's still a little bit of work to do, but we'll get them up there. All right. Have a good night. I'm glad we have our dream team right here. All right.
This is great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good night,
you.
guys.
Marina, thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.